Hi everyone, welcome back to Grounded Haven Homestead. Today is a gorgeous December day and I'm doing something pretty exciting. I'm in our greenhouse right now and today I'm going to be opening up our brand new Greenstalk and setting it up inside the greenhouse for the rest of the winter. I'm really excited for this new Greenstalk. This is something that I just bought during Greenstalk's Black Friday sale, so I got a pretty good deal on it and I've seen other people use these and I think it's going to be really great. It's a vertical planter, so here's the booklet here that it came with and some info on it, and you can plant a bunch of different things in these and it just saves you a lot of space because it's a vertical planter, so it has a really small footprint. And I think this is going to work really well in our greenhouse for the rest of the winter. In the greenhouse, I actually have a few things going. So the first thing on the left here, I have a bunch of baby kale and lettuce that I'm experimenting growing straight in this potting mix bag, just like Roots and Refuge does. I saw her do this and I wanted to try it out too. And I have mostly kale here. The lettuce didn't have great germination, but you can see some here. And these have been here since mid to late November, so it's been almost a month, and you can see they're pretty small, and that's just because it is winter. Our daylight hours are pretty short right now. But other than that, they're handling the cold just fine. Our greenhouse is not heated. It does get below freezing, but this is stuff that can handle the cold. If it gets down to like maybe single digits, it probably won't last. But if it's a sunny day, even if it's like 30 or 40 degrees outside, it can get to 100 or even above in here if all the windows are closed. So if it's a sunny day, I do often have to come out here and open the door to vent it out. And then besides that potting bag of baby greens, I'm going to keep these in here like this and just pick from it as like salad mix if that ever gets big enough. It is growing pretty slowly. But I also have this flat of seedlings here, and these were started a week before the ones in there, a week or two maybe. And you can see they're a lot bigger, I think just because they had that extra time, and also these are planted in cell trays, so each of these cells has only like 1 or 2 plants, maybe 3 max. So they have a little bit more space to grow, and they're doing really well. I have some kale here. This is romaine lettuce. I also have some tot soy here. That one's looking so nice. And then I have different varieties of kale. So I have a Siberian kale here, and then the one at the end is a lacinato kale. And those are looking super healthy, you can tell. The cold has not bothered them in here, even though it's gotten down to about 20. And the plan originally was to grow these in the flats in November and plant them out in the garden before it got too cold in our raised beds. But I always seem to forget to take into account how slowly things grow in the fall, again, just from those shorter daylight hours. It took several weeks longer to get to the right size for transplanting than I thought it would. And now I really do think they're about the perfect size for transplanting, and I'm going to try planting up the Greenstalk with a bunch of these today. So let me go ahead and open up this box and we can see what comes inside. The Greenstalk model that I ordered is called the Inventor's Bundle, and this one has 3 tiers of the original size and 3 tiers of the leaf size. The original ones are a little bit deeper and the leaf ones are a little bit shorter. Each tier has 6 different planting pockets, so I can grow a total of 42 different things in this one Greenstalk. This bundle also comes with one of their plant supports, which I'm not going to be using today, but I will be using these in the spring and summer. So when I set this up next year, I will probably be showing you how I use those. And finally, it comes with a mover base that comes with wheels. You have 3 regular wheels and 3 locking ones, and this will be really great to be able to move this around and also to rotate it so that each side of the tower gets enough sunlight. The mover base was super easy to set up, way easier than I thought it was going to be. You don't even need to like screw anything in. You just literally pop the wheels right on. It was super fast and took 5 seconds. And then there's also a little like pipe at the bottom where excess water can drain out of. You can either put a cap on it or a tube to divert that excess water. And for now I'm going to put the tube on there. And then the base is all ready. Since we have gravel in our greenhouse, this base doesn't really work very well on that, so for now I just have a scrap piece of like MDF kind of material just so I have a flat surface to work on. It's not the most sturdy, but this is only going to be here temporarily and I'm going to be moving it outside for the spring and summer later on, so I just need this here for a few months so this will work. And make sure the wheels are locked so that this doesn't move around, and then I'm going to start building this. Here's a look at the two different tiers. You can see the shorter one and the larger ones. I'm going to be starting with the 3 larger ones and then putting the shorter ones on top just for stability. And then I'm going to be filling these up. I'm using raised bed or potting soil here. Whatever kind of soil you normally use for containers, you want it to be nice and fluffy. And you just fill each tier all the way up to the top. After each tier is filled, there are these gray discs that you place right on top, and you can see that there are little holes in each of these, and I'm going to try and line each of the holes up with each of the pockets so that the water will go towards the pockets where your plants are. And you can actually transplant or seed your plants directly into these pockets now before you stack the tiers on top of each other, but I'm going to be doing it all at the end. So I'm going to go ahead, fill all of my tiers, and then stack them on top of each other, and then we'll do all the transplanting at the end. For the first 2 tiers, I'm filling the soil on the tower, but then for the rest of them, I'm filling them like on the ground, and then I'll lift each tier up separately. This makes it a little easier to lift each of the layers filled with soil rather than trying to lift an entire bag of soil, especially when you get up to like that 5th and 6th tier that's really high up, like almost as high as my head, and there's no way I can lift up a bag of soil that high. So it's just a little tip that makes it a little bit easier. As you're stacking each of your layers, make sure you have that gray disc in between. It should sit nicely on top of the soil once you have all of these filled up. And then make sure that each of the tiers is locked with the one below it. Should be pretty easy to do, and the weight of the soil will hold each of the layers in place, but you just want to make sure everything's lined up so it's nice and stable. This process is pretty easy to do. Takes a little bit of muscle up front filling all of those tiers with those bags of soil, but this should really be the only time that I ever have to do this. In the future, once I pull any spent plants out, I'm just gonna pop in a handful of compost and maybe fertilizer, and most of that soil is going to stay in there, which is awesome. In total, I used about 2.5 bags of soil, so that's probably anywhere from like $25 to $30 worth of investment in that soil. And then like I said, that is pretty much your main investment besides whatever you're going to top dress your pockets with in the future. Here's another look at that booklet that came with the Greenstalk that shows you how many of each plant that you can plant in each pocket and what kinds of things you can plant. I'm kind of amazed by some of the things they have here. They have things like butternut squash, watermelon, cabbage, and I don't know how well those would do. They seem pretty crazy for these pockets, but I'm definitely going to try them later on. Right now, I just have leafy greens, so that's what I'm going to be doing, but in the spring and summer, I have a lot of plans for trying out lots of different plants in here, and I'm really excited about that. I think the greens that I have to plant in here today, though, are definitely going to do well because greens don't need that much root space anyway, and my seedlings are looking really nice. I popped a few of them out, and the roots are looking so nice and healthy, and I think they're going to be really happy to be planted in even deeper soil. This will also help protect them if the temperatures get a little colder in our greenhouse because there will be more soil around the roots to insulate them. In each of the pockets, I'm going to be planting either 1 or 2 cells of whatever greens I have, so that will range from anywhere from like 1 to 4 plants. Since this is my first time planting this up, I am doing kind of like an experiment, so some pockets I'll plant more plants than others, and I kind of just want to play around and see how well they'll do and how much you can crowd things in these pockets before you start to suffer in production. Or maybe if they can handle them, then you just get to cram more plants in there, which is great. The 3 bottom tiers, which are the largest ones, I'm planting my 2 different kinds of kale and also romaine lettuce. I'm sticking to 1 variety for each tier so that it's nice and organized, and that just makes my brain really happy to have everything so neat. And I think it's gonna look really cool once these plants grow up a little bigger as well. And then for one of the shorter tiers, the leaf planter, I'm going to be planting it with tatsoi. The transplanting process went really quickly. I will say that it was a little difficult to kind of maneuver in each of the pockets to transplant my seedlings, and I do have small hands, so if you have larger hands, I think it would probably be better to do the transplanting before you stack the tiers on top of each other. I was just worried that I would kind of smash the seedlings as I place the tiers on top of each other, so I did it this way, but really it's not that huge a deal. It's totally worth it for saving so much space and being able to plant so many things, and also in the future you're not going to have to bend over when you're harvesting for a lot of this stuff as well, which is a huge bonus. These healthy transplanted seedlings make me so happy to see, and I think they're going to do really well here. I actually have a lot of trouble growing a lot of these things in our raised beds because every time I direct sow or transplant them, they almost immediately get eaten by slugs. So I think that having them in this Greenstalk will really help us to reduce that kind of pest damage, and hopefully I'll finally be able to grow things that I've been having trouble with, things like these greens. And the slugs also usually attack my beet seedlings, carrots, and radishes, and those are all things that you're supposed to be able to grow pretty well in the Greenstalk, so I'm really hopeful for that. After I finished filling the bottom 4 tiers with my various different greens, this is what it looks like. I think it's amazing how many plants I'm able to fit in such a small area, and then I still have those 2 tiers on top that are empty, and my plan for those is to fill these up with these strawberry plants that I have. These are all plants that I thinned out from our strawberry beds when I cleaned them out this year, and I ended up with so many plants. And I have way more than I can even fit in this Greenstalk, but this was one of the main things that I actually got the Greenstalk for. In our strawberry beds, even though we did have a really good yield, we do also lose a lot of strawberries again to slugs, and I am going to be planting these to hopefully stay permanently in a few of the tiers of this Greenstalk, and I'm hopeful that this will help us prevent a lot of slug damage. If you've ever picked strawberries, you also know that it's a lot of bending over as well. So I think that my back will really thank me for having some of these in an easy to reach vertical planter. I am so amazed by how quickly and how much strawberries can multiply themselves. From our patch, I ended up with hundreds of little seedlings that I divided, and since I have so many to choose from, I'm just trying to pick the healthiest looking ones here. You can see that some of the plants have really nice fresh looking roots. They've actually been continuing to grow in this greenhouse since it does stay pretty warm during the day, and I'm just picking the strongest ones since I only have 12 more slots left. I want to pick the best plants for these, and then if I happen to have time or space in the spring, then I'll try and find spaces for all of my leftover plants. I'm really glad to be filling up this Greenstalk and getting some use out of it over the winter. Hopefully these plants do well. Honestly, the plan was just that I was going to keep it in its box until spring and then set it up in the spring. But since I had all of these healthy plants, I figured why not give it a go? Even if it gets too cold and these things die in here, at least I gave them a good shot. And if it does work out, we're gonna get a ton of food from these seedlings. To water the Greenstalk, there is a little reservoir at the top of this, and you can just fill this one reservoir up with water, and this will distribute into each of the tiers, and they'll go into those little gray discs that we placed, and these will slowly drip down into the various layers. This is another huge bonus that I love about this Greenstalk because I kind of hate watering my plants, and it's really nice that this really streamlines the process. You just have to fill one thing one time, and it will distribute to all of your different plants slowly. And then this also makes it really easy to fertilize as well. I like to use a liquid fish fertilizer, and I can just make up one big batch of that and place it up top, and this will go to all of the plants rather than having to fertilize each of my plants separately, which is really nice and will help me to take care of my seedlings very quickly. Anyway, now the Greenstalk is all set up and planted. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm really excited for this new addition to our garden, and I'll keep you guys updated, and we'll be replanting this in the spring with brand new plants and experimenting with a lot of cool stuff next year. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you again in the next video.